Welcome back. This is the uploaded part 2 of Shabbat services for January 2nd, 2021. And this is Tibet 18 of 5781. And this is our Shabbat service for our ministry. We are an international ministry. We are Waymaker Messianic Jewish and Christian Center, USA. So welcome. We are going to begin with the Torah portion. This week, we are doing Parashat VaYechi, which translates to "and he lived." And the Torah portion this week is Genesis chapter 47, from verse 28 to chapter 50, verse 26. And we begin with Joseph's promise to Jacob. Now Jacob lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. So the days of Jacob, the years of his life, were 147 years. As the time of Israel's death, and remember, God renamed Jacob Israel, so we're talking about Jacob here when we're saying Israel as well. At the time of Israel's death drew near, he called for his son Joseph and said to him, "If I have found favor in your eyes, please put your hand under my thigh and show me faithful kindness. Please do not bury me in Egypt. When I lie down with my fathers, you must carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burial place." So he said, "I myself will do according to your word." "Swear to me," he said. So he swore to him. Then Israel bowed down in worship on the head of his staff. Chapter 48 continues blessing of Ephraim and Manasseh. Now, we know these are Joseph's sons that were born to him in Egypt. After these things, someone told Joseph, "Behold, your father is sick." So he took his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, with him. When someone told Jacob, saying, "Behold, your son Joseph is come to you," Israel summoned his strength and sat up in bed. Then Jacob said to Joseph, "El Shaddai appeared to me in Luz, in the land of Canaan, and blessed me. He said to me, I am going to make you fruitful and multiply you, and turn you into an assembly of peoples, and I will give you this land to your seed, and after you as an everlasting possession. So now your two sons, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, they are mine. Ephraim and Manasseh will be mine, just like Reuben and Simeon. Any descendant of yours whom your father after them will be yours. They will be identified by the names of their brothers for their inheritance. Now as for me, when I came from Paddan, to my sorrow, Rachel died along the way in the land of Canaan, while we were still a distance from entering Ephrath. And I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. And there you will find Rachel's tomb is along that way. Then Israel saw Joseph's sons and said, "Who are these?" Joseph said to his father, "They're my sons whom God has given me here." Then he said, "Please bring them to me so I may bless them." Now Israel's eyes had grown heavy with old age, he could not see. So he brought them near to him, and he kissed them and hugged them. Then Israel said to Joseph, to see your face I didn't expect, and look, God has let me see your offspring as well. Then Joseph took them from his knees and bowed with his face down to the ground. Then Joseph took the two of them, Ephraim with his right hand across from Israel's left, and Manasseh with his left hand across from Israel's right, and brought them close to him. But Israel stretched out his right hand and placed it upon Ephraim's head, though he was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, crossing his hands, though Manasseh was the firstborn. Now remember that the blessing would always go to the firstborn, but in this case, remember, Jacob got the blessing. He actually, because Esau had given up his birthright. So in this case, this is happening right here. Then he blessed Joseph and said, "The God before whom my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, walked, the God who has shepherded me throughout my life to this day, the angel who redeemed me from all evil. May he bless the boys, and may they be called by my name, and by the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac. May they multiply to a multitude in the midst of the land. When Joseph saw that his father placed his right hand upon Ephraim's head, it was wrong in his eyes. So he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. Joseph said to his father, "Not like that, my father, because this one's the firstborn. Put your right hand upon his head." But his father refused and said, "I know, my son, I know. He also will become a people, and he also will become great. But his youngest brother will become greater than he, and his seed will be the fullness of the nations." Then he blessed them that day, saying, "In you shall Israel bless," by saying, "May God make you like Ephraim and like Manasseh." Then he put Ephraim before Manasseh. Then Israel said to Joseph, "Look, I am about to die, but God will be with you and will bring you back to the land of your fathers. Now I myself give you one portion more than your brothers, that which I took from the hand of the Amorites with my sword and my bow." Chapter 49, and Jacob speaks over his sons. Now this is very interesting. Jacob called his sons and said to them, "Gather together so that I can tell you what will happen to you in the last days. Be assembled and listen, sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel, your father. Reuben, my firstborn are you, my vigor and firstborn of my power, endowed with extra dignity, endowed with extra strength, like water boiling over. You will not have extra, for you got up into your father's bed when you defiled a maid's couch. Simeon and Levi are brothers, instruments of violence are their knives. In their secret council may my soul not enter. In their contingent may my honor never be united. For in their anger they slew men, and in their self-will they maimed oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it was strong, and their rage, for it was cruel. I will disperse them in Jacob. I will scatter them in Israel. Judah, so you are. Your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be on your enemy's neck. Your father's sons will bow down to you. A lion's cub is Judah. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He crouches, lies down like a lion or like a lioness. Who would rouse him? The scepter will not pass from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he, to whom it belongs, will come. To him will be the obedience of the peoples. Binding his foal to the vine, his donkey's colt to the choice vine, he washes his garments in wine, and in the blood of grapes his robe. His eyes are darker than wine, and teeth that are whiter than milk. And we're speaking of the scepter not leaving the tribe of Judah. And as we look at the descendants, we can see David is in that line. And guess who else is in that line? Yeshua, Jesus. And he was foretold here in this segment in Genesis by Jacob to Judah. So we continue on with Zebulun will dwell by the seashore and be by a harbor for ships. His distant borders reaches Sidon. Issachar is a strong-boned donkey lying down between two saddlebags. He saw that a resting place was good and that the land was pleasant. He leaned his shoulder to bear a burden and became a forced laborer. Dan will judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Let Dan be a serpent beside a road, a viper beside a path, who strikes a horse's heels, for that its rider falls backward. For your salvation I wait, Adonai. Gad, attackers will attack him, but he will attack their heels. Asher, rich is his food. He will provide delicacies fit for a king. Naphtali is a doe let loose who offers words of beauty. A fruitful son is Joseph, a fruitful son beside a spring. Daughters walk along a wall. The archers were bitter and shot arrows and were hostile towards him. Yet his bow is always filled, and his arms quick moving by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. From there, a shepherd, the stone of Israel, from the God of your father who helps you, and Shaddai who blesses you, with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that lies below, blessings of breast and womb. The blessings of your father surpass the blessings of the ancient mountains, the desires of the everlasting hills. May they be upon Joseph's head, upon the crown of the one set apart from his brothers. Benjamin is a ravening wolf. In the morning he devours spoils, and in the evening divides plunder. These are the tribes of Israel, 12 in all. And this is what their father spoke to them. He blessed them, each one he blessed with a suitable blessing. Then he charged them and said to them, I am about to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, that is next to Mamre in the land of Canaan, the field that Abraham bought from Ephron the Hittite as property for burial. There they buried Abraham and his wife Sarah. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah, and there I buried Leah. The field was purchased along with the cave in it from the sons of Het. When Jacob finished commanding his sons, he drew his feet up into his bed, then breathed his last, and was gathered to his peoples. Now everyone from Abraham on had been buried in this cave, except for Rachel because she died along the way. So she was buried along the road around Bethlehem. Chapter 50, Lamentation, Mourning for Jacob. Joseph fell upon his father's face, wept over him, and kissed him. Then Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. They took 40 days for him because that is how long embalming takes. And Egypt wept 70 days. When the days of formal weeping passed, Joseph spoke to Pharaoh's house, saying, If I have found favor in your eyes, please say in Pharaoh's ears, my father made me take an oath, saying, Behold, I am about to die in my tomb, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. There you must bury me. So now please allow me to go up and bury my father, and then return. Pharaoh said, Go up and bury your father, just as he made you swear an oath. So Joseph went up to bury his father. Also all of Pharaoh's servants, the elders of his household, and all the elders of the land of Egypt went up with him, along with all of Joseph's house, his brothers, and his father's household. Only their children and their flocks and cattle were left in the land of Goshen. Chariots and horsemen also went up with him. It was a very impressive company. When they came to the threshing floor of the bramble on the other side of the Jordan, they mourned there a very great and solemn lamentation. He observed 7 days of mourning for his father. When the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning ritual at the threshing floor of the prickly bush, they said, A solemn mourning ritual. This is for the Egyptians. That is why it is named Abel Mizraim, which is on the other side of the Jordan. So Jacob's sons did for him just as he commanded them. His sons carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, the field that Abraham bought as a property for burial from Ephron the Hittite next to Mamre. After burying his father, Joseph returned to Egypt, he and his brothers, and all those who went up with him to bury his father. And the last part of the Torah portion this week is Joseph comforting his brothers. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father had died, they said, Maybe Joseph will be hostile towards us and pay us back in full for all the evil we showed him. So they charged Joseph, saying, Before his death your father gave a command, saying, Thus you must say to Joseph, Please forgive, I beg you, the transgressions of your brothers and their sin, because they treated you wrongly. Therefore please forgive the transgressions of the servants of the God of your father. Then Joseph wept when they spoke to him, and his brothers also came and fell down before him and said, Behold, we are your slaves. But Joseph said to them, Don't be afraid, for am I in the place of God? Yes, you yourselves planned evil against me. God planned it for good in order to bring about what it is this day, to preserve the lives of many people. So now don't be afraid. I myself will provide food for you and your little ones. So he reassured them, speaking kindly to them. Joseph remained in Egypt, he and his father's household, and Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph saw the third generation of Ephraim's sons, also the sons of Machir. Manasseh's son was born upon Joseph's knees. Then Joseph said to his brothers, I'm about to die, but God will surely take notice of you and will bring you up from this land to the land that he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph made Israel's sons swear an oath, saying, When God takes notice of you, you will bring my bones up from here. So Joseph died at 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was placed in a coffin in Egypt. So there was a promise made for Joseph's bones to be carried out uh, of Egypt at a precise time, which we're going. That's a spoiler alert. That will be happening in the future. So that is the end of this week's Torah portion. We're going to recap on that before we move ahead into the Haftarah. So as this week's Torah portion opens, we find that Jacob actually had lived already 17 years in the land of Egypt, when Joseph had him brought there, and all of the family was brought to Egypt, and they were settled in Goshen. They lived 17 years there before Jacob felt that the end of his days were approaching. And he had Joseph swear to him that he would not bury him in Egypt, but that he would take them to the family plot, so to speak, the tomb that was bought by Abraham, the cave of Machpelah. So Joseph kept that promise, and then as this section proceeds, Joseph gets word that Jacob is very ill, and he brings his two sons to be blessed by his father. And actually, what happens is Joseph gives a higher blessing to the younger son intentionally. But at first, Joseph thought his father's eyesight was not good; he couldn't see, and so he brought that up to his father, and his father said, "No, I know what I'm doing. I'm giving this blessing to Ephraim over Manasseh, because he will be stronger and will be full, and Ephraim will outstrip Manasseh in greatness." The other thing Jacob had told Joseph too of how he had to bury Rachel along the road to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem, because she died along the way. But the family plot was basically this cave of Machpelah. So Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, and Leah were already buried there. Jacob also gives an additional portion, an additional blessing to Joseph, and that's known as a Shechem. He got an additional portion over his brothers, one that he took with his own sword, which Jacob had taken with his own sword. And finally, before Jacob died, he actually addressed all of his sons. He set out to bless his own sons, and also wanted to let them know what would come upon them in the end of days. And he addressed each of them, even by their faults, and how that would affect them. Now, Judah, he says the scepter will never leave Judah, and also nor will the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs will come. To him will be the obedience of the peoples, and really, to he who will come, of course, is Yeshua in the future, and we know that Yeshua is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and he will rule and reign forever. So Jacob then passes away. Joseph goes to Pharaoh and tells Pharaoh that he made a promise. He made a covenant with his father, a promise that he would bury him um, in the land of his people. And Pharaoh said, "Go, keep your promise to your father." And he also sent um, Pharaoh's servants went along with him, and a whole entourage went with him. Um, and there was mourning that went on. The embalming process was 40 days. There was 70 days of mourning before actually Joseph and the entourage left, and then there was 7 days of mourning once they reached the land as well. So once Jacob was buried, they all returned back to Egypt, and then Joseph's brothers were very frightened. They really thought that Joseph was going to turn on them, and and take revenge on them for what they did to him years ago. And it really was heartbreaking to Joseph because that was never his intentions to harm them. And he let them know that no, what you meant for evil for me, God turned around for good, and saved uh, everyone here, including you. And no, I will continue to do good to you. So Joseph lived 110 years, and he had his brothers. On his deathbed, he told his brothers that God will surely remember them and bring their children out of Egypt, and to bring his bones out when that does happen. We're ending this Torah portion, and the children of Israel really are not living in hard times at this point. This Pharaoh is a good Pharaoh who actually gave them favor. Who actually, to recap this whole the, the prior Torah portions that we did weeks ago, when they came into Egypt, it was for all good intentions. There was a famine going on, and Joseph had favor, with Pharaoh, and was co-leading actually Egypt. So these were good times actually. But as we're gonna see, spoiler alert, as we move into next week's Torah portion, things will decompensate because there's a new Pharaoh who doesn't know who Joseph is, doesn't remember Joseph, and does not like the children of Israel. So we will be moving into some harder times here, and we're going to get into Exodus next week. I'm going to pause this. We're going to come back with the Haftarah portion in the uploaded segment, which will be part 3. So I'm going to pause it right here, and we'll come back with the Haftarah portion.